Identity and Ethics, Digital Communities, a presentation by Cody Skamowski for IAAS 667, Legal and Ethical Security Topics, taught by Professor Gabriela Ziegler at Davenport University Global Campus. The defining identity or persona of a user in an online or online community. That is what we mean when we talk about internet identity. The identity of you online is something that starts with just an email address and carries through with every action that you do. It is very wise to be security conscious whenever you partake of any kind of consumption of digital content on the internet. So the ethical theory that applies utility, which is a pseudonym for happiness, to a given situation. Whichever act brings out the most utility to the situation is generally considered to be the best solution. That's what we mean when we talk about utilitarianism. So the purpose of this presentation today is to examine a couple of different situations, namely cyberbullying and prison inmate and internet access, and examine a couple of different arguments in these situations that deal with internet identity. And we're going to examine them from an ethical theory of utilitarianism. So let's get started. How do we define cyberbullying? Bullying committed using internet or electronic technologies is cyberbullying. This can be anything from harassing someone from email or an IM suite or stalking them on Facebook. Cyberbullying is a very broad definition. The two examples we're going to talk about today are emailing and Facebook or other social media. Whenever we talk about Facebook, we can generally assume any social media platform that requires an email to sign up for an account can be slotted in there. Cyberbullying is extremely easy to do. Creating a new identity on the internet is free and simple thanks to companies like Google. It's not just Google that you can sign up for an unlimited amount of unverified email addresses. It's a very easy thing to do. Google is just a very easy one to pick on because it's ubiquitous. Everyone knows what Google is. So the real problem with cyberbullying, of course, is it can lead to greater amounts of cruelty than you would normally see in a bullying situation, because the bully can hide behind a network of just a network, but a network of bad or false identities that can cloud who they actually are. And when people can hide behind a mask, you generally can see just how bad people can be. So our first example we're going to talk about is with email. Bob the bully wants to harass Alice through email. Bob knows Alice's private email addresses. Everyone gives out their email addresses. They're posted all over the place. So if Bob uses his first email, let's say bob@gmail.com for sake of simplicity, and starts sending unwelcome emails or bullying content towards Alice, Alice can block Bob's email, sure, but Bob can just sign into Google, or not even sign in, just go to google.com and create a new email address under a false identity that can send email directly to Alice. Alice's only recourse to stop Bob from harassing her through email is to either make a new email and not share it with Bob or anyone that Bob might find, or not post it publicly, or seek real-world legal action on Bob, which is fine and dandy if Alice knows who Bob is. But if Alice has no idea who Bob is and is just some random troll on the internet sending Alice unwelcome emails, that's not a viable solution. So the only solution that Alice really has is to change your email or continuing blocking these emails that are from Bob. There are several higher level network functions such as IP address blocking, domains, all kinds of weird things that are far beyond the normal user. So in looking at this from a utilitarian point of view, Alice's only way to stop Bob from bullying her is to change Alice's email. That anyone who's ever gone through a personal email or phone number change knows that is the exact opposite of a utilitarian approach. Changing your personal email address that you've assigned to countless different things over your life is never an easy task. So The potential solution in this situation would be for Alice to guard their main identity and then communicate with others on the internet through controlled environments where identity is verified. That would be digital communities such as Facebook, or which is the example we use in a second, or other digital community where you have more control over who you can communicate with. So that's a potential solution. So let's talk about that now. So we went too far. If we use Facebook as an example again, Bob the bully wants to harass Alice through Facebook instead of email. Bob is friends with Alice on Facebook. So Bob starts sending Alice rude messages, bullying them, any number of nefarious acts. Well, instead of blocking Bob's email account this time, blocking Bob's email and then waiting for Bob to spin up a new email address, Alice simply blocks Bob's Facebook account from contacting hers. Sure, Bob can make a new account, but Bob can't even message Alice through Facebook without getting Alice's permission now. Alice either has to accept the friend request or accept the message request, both of which Alice is free to say no to without any reason. And then Bob's cyberbullying has suddenly been stopped. I realize this is not a perfect solution to all cyberbullying situations, but if you use a service such as Facebook for your communication, you're given more granular control over who you're allowed to talk to. This is in essence what I mean by a digital community. I went too far again. So Alice has used this digital community to create more utility for her situation. She now has control over who can communicate with her and has stopped Bob the bully in his tracks. So if Alice is like a lot of people in the current age, is giving random people your public email address is not something that a lot of people do anymore. I personally don't know or have in my contacts most of my friends' email addresses. I would prefer to communicate with them through something like Facebook or other instant messaging service that I can have more control over should my email address ever come out there publicly. So let's move on to another example where we can talk about how identity can be used with the internet to generate more utility for people. And that is prisoner or inmate internet access. This is going to be a polarizing topic for a lot of people. But should prisoners be allowed to internet access to communicate with loved ones at a distance or to enrich their education? Basically, two of the more common non-fun reasons that most people use the internet now is for education or enrichment or for communicating with other people. So the education situation, it's the information age, and more people, including your humble presenter, have gotten or in the process of getting a higher level education online. It's often accomplished. A common learning management system will have a virtual private network, including a university library that people will log into given credentials, such as in the case of Davenport University, we have an online library that federates with a bunch of other university online libraries. And once I sign into my student portal, I am now, in essence, in that network, which is more of an intranet. These things are not publicly available. So all that's able to be guarded using identity. An education intranet is easily scalable and secured. You can choose which content is allowed on that network and exactly what the permissions of each user are. So my proposition would be, in a controlled environment, a controlled intranet, you could give a inmate a online identity that ties them to the prison and only allows them to go to certain areas of the intranet in this case, that are allowed to for the purpose of their education. This could allow prisoners who may not get the chance to learn some vocational trades that are commonplace with prison time. A lot of tropes you see with this are someone goes to prison and gets a degree to be or gets a certification to be an auto mechanic or HVAC operator, some pliable trade like that. There's no reason why someone who's been sent to prison and is in good behavior should not be able to have the same opportunity to obtain an advanced degree. Using online identity, this kind of solution would definitely improve the utility of society as a whole, because the whole point of sending someone to prison is to reform them in the case of crimes that have nonviolent crimes or crimes against humanity, sort of thing. If someone made a simple mistake and did a crime of thievery and is honestly repentant, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to use the time that they're going to be reformed for society to learn a new trade that could also benefit society. Another situation in which utility could be increased by allowing some internet access to inmates is a lot of times an inmate will be have to serve their time at a institution that is not feasible for friends or loved ones to travel to on a regular basis to see them. So using similar technologies than we just discussed, for identity and virtual private networks, there could be a communication network set up that could be monitored by corrections staff, in which video communication between inmate and a loved one they normally wouldn't be able to communicate with could be accomplished. COVID-19 has shown us that it is possible to secure video communications to a degree that in a prison environment, it should work. COVID-19 has shown us that if video conferencing is secure enough for government officials to be able to, while socially distant, communicate with each other and still have all the monitoring that they need, a similar system should not be as hard to set up for a correctional institution, for the ability for inmates to be able to communicate better with their loved ones on the outside, which would potentially increase their demeanor, making them more willing to reform for society, thus increasing utility for all. So here's the arguments against that. Many are going to argue that a prisoner who has been convicted of a crime thus has become an enemy of society and is negative utility at that point and is going to prison to increase their utility. What gives them their rights to be able to have the internet, and should some types of crime exclude inmates from internet access? I speak of extremely violent crimes such as murder or rape, death row crimes. There's no point in giving them to enrich their education because they're basically a drain on society at that point. So in cyber crimes, it's probably not a good idea to give a cyber criminal intranet access even under supervision unless they demonstrate good behavior. So internet identity can protect us as easily as it can hurt us, but by knowing who we are and where we are on the internet, we can make it a safer place, increasing utility for all. That's the main point of this presentation, is to get the consumer of this material thinking about ways that by using identity and using information technology, we can find ways to increase the utility of society and work towards the electronic utopia that we all dream of.